Okay, in this demo, I'm going to show you how to configure shares on a file server and grant permissions to department directories. It's very important that we lock these down and secure them. Otherwise, we can have a problem on our hands. So let's begin. I've installed the file server role already on this server, and we have the shares tab here. So what we're going to do is start this wizard, and we're going to create a new SMB share, and we're going to make it quick. So we're going to create a new directory, a new share directory. So within the D drive, which is my secondary drive, I'm going to go new folder, and I'm going to call it company underscore directories, and select that folder and select again. And next, I'm going to put a dollar here. And what this does is it adds this little sort of extra level of security. So it hides the directory so that people can't just try to UNC to it or look for it. Next, we're going to allow enable access-based enumeration. This is a cool feature that only what this happens here is if it's checked, only users that have access to certain directories or folders can see those folders. They will not see any other folders they don't have access to. So next, so this is important. So we're going to change the default permissions. So currently right now, if I look at them, you can see here that if I try to change these or remove them, it says, can't do it. This is being inherited from somewhere else. You must break inheritance first. And you can see here that it's actually, they're getting their permissions from the top level. So right from the drive itself. So we're not going to mess around with properties here. We're going to break inheritance below this. So you can see here that these are the permissions at the top level that are being inherited down to this level. Okay. So we're going to actually disable inheritance here because we have to make some changes so that we can lock this share down or these directories down. So I'm going to go into disable inheritance. It's going to say, would you like to convert these? And I would. I'd like to convert the inheritable permissions into explicit permissions. And what will happen is it'll change all these D: back to none. And then we can go forward from here. Okay, so let's do that. Then you can see it's all at none. We need to remove the special users. It's very important because currently by default in the special, users can write. They can create files, they can write data, create folders, append data. So that's not good. So what we're going to do is delete that. And so we're left with this one. If we go in here, we can see this is only allowing read. And that's what we want to this level. We only want our users to see the company directories, right? They need that visibility to get down into the directories that they are going to be accessing once we grant those NTFS permissions. So there's two things that need to change here. Number one is we want to make sure that we only allow to the subfolders of this directory, meaning what's going to happen is below this directory, users won't be able to get into it. So what I mean by that is what we're going to put underneath these company directories are the department directories. Okay. So IT, for instance, finance, office of the CEO, uh, communications, HR, whatever they may be. But we don't want users to just, some savvy tech users to go // file one / company directories $, and then they can see all the directories. So if the reality is if they did go there, they still wouldn't be granted permissions down into those directories, but they'd be able to see the structure, and we want to not allow that to be visible at all. So let's fix that by doing the subfolder onlys, and also we need to apply these permissions to objects within this container only, okay? So we're going to hit that, and we're going to go OK, apply, OK. Now it's changed the permissions, and going forward from here now, we're going to have these permissions. So next, it shows me what we've done. Create. It's done. Now from here, we can go into File Explorer on the file server and take a look at what we actually did here. So if we go to the properties, we can go to the sharing tab. And in advanced sharing, this is all done by default when you create a share. So when we created that share, Microsoft does this. recommends everyone have full access. It doesn't matter. We don't care who, we need everybody to come congregate in this section, but then we will then delegate their rights below here. So this is just a way in, okay? It's the front door. So let's allow that at this point. Um, if we go into the properties or the security tab, we can see now that users can read and execute at this level. That's important. We need them to be able to get into the directories as well. And then of course the administrator and the defaults have access. That's good. So the next step now is, well, underneath this is we need to have these company directories, right? So we need to create an IT directory for all the IT files. We're going to create one for finance for all the finance files. So at this point right now, if I have an end user and they are smart enough to find out, or they found out what the top level shares name is and they know the file server name, they could try to go in and mess around. So let's go and try that. So let's bring up a standard domain user here. So let's have the user log in or try to access. So file, company directories, $, enter. Okay, so this is good. At this point now we're being blocked. The end user will not see any of these IT finance directories at this point, right? But if they do now find out that there is an IT directory, they can hit enter and they are able to get in here and finance. They are able to see this because we had to make it visible. If we didn't, they wouldn't be able to get access into this area. The reality is nobody will be able to do this because we will be mapping drives directly to their folders. So they're not even going to be aware of any of this, but we also need to protect ourselves as administrators and secure this down. So, but this is a good, can they write in here? They cannot, so that's good. Can this user write into the IT directory? Probably not, because we haven't granted any NTFS permissions at this point. So this is good. We've locked this down. But what's most important is if a user knew of our top directory, they cannot even go in here to see. Okay, so it's now skipped this level. So what we're going to do now is, let's say this user is an IT user. So let's say this is an IT manager. So within the IT directory itself, we're now going to have to create an IT managers directory. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Let's go back to our test user, our IT user, and see what happens. Okay, if I hit enter, the user doesn't see that folder. Why? No permissions have been granted. And why does it hide that? Well, access-based enumeration. If you don't have rights to a specific folder, you do not see it. So let's give those rights and see what happens. Actually, let's create another directory in here. We'll call this one IT_service desk. Okay, so these are the help desk employees. But we're going to give this user that we want to grant, this other user we've been logging in with, his name's Roy. Let's go give him rights to the managers. So if I go to properties and I go to the security tab, only the defaults, so administrators are allowed in here. Let's add Roy and we'll give him modify rights, meaning he can pretty much do anything except take ownership. Okay, now let's go back to Roy and we'll see what happens in the IT directory. So we'll refresh this, and there you go. Roy can see the IT managers directory, and because he has modified permissions, he can create his own directory, Roy's stuff, okay? And within Roy's stuff, he can create files, right? Roy's file, okay? So that's great, that's what we want. So this is working properly. So now Roy can only access the level of his directory, which is the IT manager's directory. Okay, that's all he can see. He can't see the IT or finance or anything like that because he has no rights to it. He can only get into the folder he wants access to. Well, let's say because he's a manager, he needs access to some of the service desk information. Well, let's go take a look and we can add Roy to this directory as well. Okay, and we'll give him, let's say he just needs to read in there, doesn't need to edit any files. Once we go back to Roy, refresh File Explorer, we should be able to see the service desk, and there you go. So can he write in here? He cannot, because he can only read. So if an IT service desk user who has full rights in here makes a file, he can see it, execute it, take a look at it, but he can't make any changes. So that's the best way to set up your share and your company directories from a security standpoint. The best practice, of course, which we'll get into next, is we never assign users to NTFS permissions. It's not best practice. It can get very ugly and it's very hard to manage. We will be creating security groups for this going forward. So that's it for this demo. We'll see you at the next one.